empathy plus love equals compassion.
Empathy plus love equals compassion. Sorry, I just needed a second with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So we for teachers, I like teachers to start to trust, to listen to and to trust their empathic resonance, and then also to speak from the resonance. So often we feel what somebody's feeling, and if it's painful, then we go into our heads to try to figure out how am I going to help this person or how we're going to fix that. And then when it's time for me to speak, out of my mouth comes a suggestion. That's a waste of time.
Welcome back to If I'm Really Honest, where I seek truth without tribalism. It's a place where ignorance isn't punished, curiosity is rewarded, and conflict doesn't mean contempt. As always, I hope that I've brought you someone that you don't fully agree with, and you've brought yourself, so you're way ahead of me on that one. Now, if you're a fan of the American Revolution, you probably know the name Paul Revere. If you're a fan of cars, you probably know the name Henry Ford. And if you spent any time at all in the realm of self-compassion, then you're as excited as I am to hear once again from Dr. Chris Germer. If you know my story, you know this practice probably saved my life, just as surely as it freed me from the baggage that I had acquired during my decades in a destructive version of what we would have called Christianity. I'm happier and healthier than I've ever been before, and I'm more loving, genuinely, to myself and to others than back when loving others with the right kind of love was literally my life's goal. And it all started, either by coincidence or causation, with my own foray into the deceptively deep practice of something called self-compassion. A practice that has been popularized and promoted by people like Kristen Neff and one Dr. Chris Germer. So I know you as the self-compassion guy. So what are your current passions or projects, or because like the stuff I know of you, I'm like a good 5 or 10 years behind today. So,
well, I just finished writing a book on self-compassion for shame.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that should be off my desk at the end of the year and published in October of next year.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. So that's the latest project.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And last year, or no, it was early this year, Kristen Neff and I published a book on burnout.
Okay. Right. I saw that one.
Self-compassion for burnout. And then in 2018 and 2019, we did 2 books on the mindful self-compassion program.
Right.
Yeah. But I'd say most of the time I support teachers of self-compassion. So tomorrow I'm flying to Europe for 3 weeks to teach in Italy and Austria, and then in December in various Asian countries. So I would say most of what I do is in that area, teaching teachers of self-compassion. But I'm 72 years old, so until 12 noon is inner life. After 12 is outer life. Gotcha. So everything I'm telling you is from 12 noon onward.
Yes. Okay.
I started reading on your website about your introduction to self-compassion, and
okay.
Just before I needed to log on.
Yes.
And your dream.
Okay. I wrote that a long time ago. I don't know what was in there.
It was a long dream, but I didn't get to read the whole thing. But but it sure seemed like you got the gist of it, Jamin.
Yeah. There could be a couple of them. So there was one probably that had to do with a dream that I had about me and my brother. And that was actually after, we had a pretty traumatic break with my family in 2020. Went to a therapist for a long time. Eventually, she said, "You need to go to compassion cultivation training." Essentially, that's going to be your best path out. So then I went there. I studied with Dr. William Teeley, and went through the program. And it was like everything. I come from a highly religious background, and so everything went. Like it all made sense to me, like compassion for other people. We got to the self-compassion part and like nothing clicked.
Nothing clicked, yeah.
It was like, I wish I won the lottery or something like that. Like wishing that I would be free from suffering was like there wasn't any emotional connection there. So I would say the words and like, I don't know what this is supposed to be doing for me, but I guess I'll say the words. I'm here to do the thing. It wasn't until I got to the one day, for some reason, I got to the part where, I'm picking somebody random that I kind of know. And there were a lot of people that walked into my neighborhood, walked their dogs and stuff. So a bunch of people that I don't really know, didn't really interact with. And so I was trying to imagine, what they go through in their lives and what suffering they might have, and trying to imagine that. And for some reason, for just a second, it flipped for me. And I thought, like if I was them walking the dog and seeing this guy off to the side, and I saw myself from their eyes, and that changed it. Like this poor guy, like he's suffering, he's trying everything he knows, and he can't find any relief from these thoughts and all the stuff that I was going through. And I just felt really sorry for myself, and I had a lot of compassion for myself. And like, of course, having my religious background, I recoiled from that almost immediately. That's not allowed. But then I thought, well, it would be allowed if it was them. Like, this can't be a sin. if they're allowed to feel this way for me, maybe I'm allowed to feel this way for me. And
Good for you.
that changed my life.
Good for you. You gave yourself. When we ask people, like later on after self-compassion training, what made the difference? They say two things. One is, it gave me permission to include myself in the circle of compassion, not systematically exclude.
Right.
And it reminded me. So once we give ourselves permission, we often still need to remind ourselves because it's not natural,
Yeah. Is that a human thing, an American thing, a religious thing?
No, that's human thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's human. I've taught all over the planet on this thing, and it's, there are cultural differences, but the bottom line is that in every culture, people are more instinctively compassionate toward others than themselves.
Interesting.
And they're also more instinctively going into threat mode than into compassion mode.
Restate that for me so I can connect with that better.
Human, when you say it's a human thing, there are two things that are human. One is that people tend to be way more people in the vast majority of people are more compassionate toward others than themselves.
Yeah.
That's a human thing.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing is that it's much easier for people to get into a threat mode than a care mode, into, fight, flight, or freeze rather than tending and befriending,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
It's more instinctive. It's faster. It's more survival based. Once we are physically safe, then we have the option to be kind and caring. But the first thing we need to do is get safe, so.
Right.
Yeah. So those are two, you might say, that's why it's always an uphill climb. And will be as long as human beings have their current DNA.
Right. Yeah. So then what I heard was that like in Eastern countries that they would start self-compassion earlier in the meta training, but then in America we have a harder time with that, and so they put it off towards the end. Is that something you've run into, or is that urban legend?
So traditionally, in most traditions, also in Christianity, Buddhism, and so forth, the idea is that we already love ourselves.
Right.
And then we can use that as the foundation for expanding our circle of compassion toward others. In other words, just remember how much you love yourself, assume other people love themselves, and be kind to them, love them,
Right.
That's pretty, that crosses, it's across different religions and cultures. The problem is that actually, although people do love themselves, they have a very funny way of showing it. They do it with self-criticism, with self-hatred, with, the Dalai Lama once said, when asked, why do people criticize themselves? And he said, because they think something good will come of it for themselves.
Right.
So actually, in order to love ourselves, we need to practice.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally. In order to be as kind to ourselves as we are toward others, which is ultimately a selfless thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
It's pretty selfish to decide everyone is different than me and I shouldn't be kind to myself. That's pretty self-centered.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot different to consider us all humans and we all need love. That's more generous.
And that was definitely part of my journey is like you're saying, including myself in just like we're
Yeah,
all
we're all
struggling.
people. We're all people. We're all trying to do the best we can. We're all doing the best we can, and we can all do better, but we're also beautiful as we struggle through. So let's give everybody a break, including ourselves.
Yeah, right. Well, and
Yeah.
I feel like those are words that I would have said before, but that I just have a different relationship to now because the
Yeah.
whole loving of yourself thing, at least in the tradition I came up in, that was exactly everything that we were trying to avoid. Everything in life was about
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to decrease that, and so
Yeah.
then love others as yourself, like. That we almost we said it and we meant it, but what we really meant is love others and not yourself, and that's how you'll know that you're
That's
doing it right.
precisely the case. Yeah. And then there's also the mystical side. Loving others as yourself means actually we are others. They are us, you
Right.
know. And from that point of view, that's actually what compassion is all about. It's omnidirectional. And when the energy of compassion is alive, it flows in all directions, inner and outer. One way of talking about self-compassion is inner compassion.
Ken?
And so it goes in all directions. So why say it can't go here or shouldn't go there? And of course, the research is pretty obvious that, the higher the level of self-compassion, as we grow in self-compassion, we grow in compassion for others.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. I like in your it was I think your book was in like 2016, so it might have been a long time ago. But you had some story about your wife was getting over a surgery or something, and then you were like having a hard time like taking care of yourself, and you just had to like pause in your care for her to go take care of yourself in order so that you could come back. And that has been transformational for me. Just that realization of like I'm going to I'm going to be a better person if I include
Yeah.
myself in
Thank you
this
for
care.
remembering that anecdote. Yeah. It was actually 2009. It was a long
Okay.
time ago.
Yes. I told you I'm way behind your
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But yes. Uh-huh.
But thank you for remembering that. Yeah, that was also a learning experience for me. Like,
Mhm.
it really makes a difference.
What things do you currently learn or need to be reminded of in your own practice, and what does your practice look like?
I would say the warmth side is still growing. So, it's one thing to pay attention to ourselves. It's one thing to think, "How would I treat a friend?" Um, but I think all of us, have an inner voice, which is truly loving, and, uh, I think it's really important when we listen to when we seek counsel within ourselves that, uh and that includes, like, seeking counsel from God, um, that we prioritize the voices that are full of love, uh, and not the conditioned voices and the noise that we've internalized from outside. So, I guess in my current life, I'm starting to really assume that the voice of love is in there, and and I can wait until I hear it if I'm looking for some sort of guidance. And that doesn't mean you're right, Chris. You know, it means it means even if it's a rebuke, it's done with great love. You can feel the love in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is to as it were, trust the warmth uh, and not to take counsel from the warmth and to turn toward oneself with warmth rather than just with awareness and curiosity and willingness,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different.
What is it? What are the extremes? What does it look like when it doesn't include the warmth?
Well, it gets noisy. If I ask myself a question, there'll be all sorts of competing voices. But when the loving voice comes up, usually that ends the conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. And so then you said like up until about noon is your inner life, and then noon after is your outer life.
Yeah, yeah. I get up in the morning, I have a cup of tea, I meditate for a couple hours, I read, I care for the body,
Yeah.
so I'm 72 years old, I can afford this. You're a young man, you gotta, like, do stuff, more stuff. You're you're in the action phase of life. I'm in a semi-retirement phase of life, and so as not to get caught up in all the activities that are always available and people asking for, I, made an arbitrary 12 noon thing.
Yeah. Cool.
So, for example, we're not speaking before 12 noon.
Right.
And, yeah, so that's great because then anything I do after 12 is a source of joy, actually. Even, like, things I used to hate, I don't mind doing them
Hmm.
after 12, because basically the spirit has been nourished, the heart has been nourished.
When you say you spend a couple hours in meditation, what types of meditation is that including?
So, I follow the breath, but not in a kind of compulsive way, more in a allowing myself basically to be rocked and caressed by the rhythm of the breathing. So I get up and I allow that to happen. I also have, some one or two words, which to me capture, just like loving kindness phrases, what is my the highest ideal in life,
Mhm.
and, like love.
Yeah.
And so I bring my awareness to one or both of those things, and then after a while, the mind gets very still and can release those things, or, basically, at the end of the day, kind of resting in loving awareness. So meditation, is people often think meditation is concentration, focusing on one thing and returning to that thing again and again, and that's part of it. But at some point, the mind becomes still, and that bringing intentionally anything into the doing anything intentional becomes, unnecessary, and that's when we can just, rest in who we are. We can rest in loving awareness. So, yeah, that's the joy of meditation is is resting in loving awareness, in love and in consciousness. But that doesn't happen in 20 minutes and it doesn't happen in 45 minutes. It usually more likely to happen after an hour or two, let me put it that way,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
the mind is so agitated by the external world or by dreams or by demands or by the internet or something. It's all like the mind is usually bouncing around because of all the input, but after a while, it will settle if
Yeah.
you, hold it in a consistent and loving way, and then awareness itself reveals itself. Yeah.
So then, my own practice is about 20 to 30 minutes in the middle of the day, and then a quick gratitude practice about 5 times a day. And so it's in tiny little chunks. And it sounds like not nearly as much. What did your practice look like in different seasons of your life?
So first of all, what you describe is a great practice, and tiny little chunks is the best. In other words, we don't want to just practice and then let the world, swallow us up and spit us out by the end of the day. We need to maintain our center, right? And so gratitude practice helps you to maintain your center for sure, right? gratitude is a mindfulness plus love and appreciation practice. Gratitude keeps us here, present and aware and warm-hearted. So it's a beautiful practice. Um, so I started out with transcendental meditation when I was a young guy, 25.
Was that through a specific organization or just the practice
Yeah, it's a
itself?
meditation. It's like it came out of India, and had yeah. So that was 20 minutes twice a day, morning and evening, and that's what I did for a while, and then soon after that, I got interested in mindfulness meditation, which tends to be a little bit longer, tends to be like 45 minutes, usually once a day. So it's kind of a deeper dive, different, less. It, at the time, mindfulness was a little more of a retreat based thing. In other words,
Like literally retreat, like a weekend retreat kind of a thing.
yeah, like
Yeah.
going on retreats, but then also sitting for longer periods of time. 20 minutes, I think, is really the best amount of time for somebody fully involved in the world, you know? But with different practices, different amounts of time are helpful, but frankly, it's just hard for people, especially if you have kids, to meditate for more than 20 minutes. But, I also think, having practices throughout the day, what we call, like, on-the-spot practices, brief practices, micro practices, that's the best thing. And so I do that too, and after 12 noon, I still practice. I still have language which I'll repeat to myself at particular times and yeah.
So is that like an intentional practice? Like for me, I've got alarms on my phone that go off like to remind me. Are your intermittent practices intentional at specific times or
Yeah,
just
very, very intentional. I don't
okay?
use a bell, but, it's part of my life. I have, like, a earworm running through my head all the time,
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Well, the
which
guy,
reminds me of our purpose on life and our ultimate reality, which is love.
right?
Yeah, so to be reminded of that and to have a habit of reminding oneself of that through the day
Hmm.
is, is wonderful.
Whenever I talk to the guy that taught the class, the CCT class that I took, William Tilley, it's always shocking to me how fully enveloped his life is in the practice. Where I feel like I have to keep returning to it, he feels like it feels to me like he's just living in it, and that feels
Yeah, so that's good news. That means that practice can become a habit. You know, like states can become traits, and yeah, like that. States can become habits, and habits can become traits. Bundles of habits become traits. So things, whatever you wish for, can become deeply integrated into your life. Yeah, not that we'll ever stop being, human in an imperfect way. That's part of the beauty of life, frankly. But, um, you know, we we can, uh, inner development and personal development is real. They're, you know, they're just, some people know that this is possible. Some don't know this is possible. Some people know that it's possible, but they are not interested. You know,
Do you think
like
they actually know what's possible and they're not interested, or they're not interested because they don't understand it?
Oh, not enough guidance, not enough support, not enough too many distractions, too many, alternate desires, like, I would say a large part of my life, I wanted to be rich and famous, and and that was a bit of a distraction, I might say. Fortunately, it wasn't the dominant desire in my life, but it was interfering in terms of personal development.
Yeah, and that you still felt that tug even throughout the time you had these practices.
Oh, yeah. our desires are yeah. It's good to know what we wish for because we may get it,
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, that's a terrifying thing. That's why I wish not to be rich and famous. Like, it doesn't seem to go well in most cases.
Well, but you may become rich and famous. I
Yeah,
didn't and frankly, it's okay to do that if it's used in a good way, right? Like, it's what we wanna do is we wanna harness our desires for good to the best of our ability and wisdom, right? So, there's nothing wrong with having worldly desires, they're just ultimately not as satisfying as other things. But we have to we have to, if you're a parent, you have to maintain a family, you have to take care of your body, you don't wanna be a burden on people, you gotta do your business, But but not to forget, the deeper value of living, you know? Yeah.
yeah. I feel like people in my season of life, um, that's one of the big struggles about getting into a practice is just like I'm already doing my best and I'm already overloaded. I can't add one more thing. That would be great for people who have that luxury, but
Yeah.
I can't do that. And the the realization that this will improve this over here, and also that like there's so many free things that you can incorporate, whether it's eating more healthy food instead of eating junk food, or breathing, taking a couple minutes to breathe. It's hard to. I feel like that also fights against the self-compassion thing, because there is that like self-defense thing of like, but I'm already doing my best, and if I can add in one more thing and it makes my kid's life better, that means I wasn't doing my best, and then all the guilt that goes with that. And it's almost like I need to not be able to do this thing over here. But
Yeah, so you're talking about your season of life, and so it's a very precious season of life, it's a generative season of life, it's action-oriented season of life, it's a giving and receiving to the world in a big way season of life. It's all, wonderful. The main thing is, how we do that, right? It's not so much what we do, but how. And ultimately, we wanna I think what makes being in your season of life increasingly joyful is, to do it as an act of, service, of reverence, with non-attachment. In other words, to make what there are 3 ways to approach things. There's duty without love, there's duty with love, and then there's love without duty,
yeah, okay.
So, you're in the duty with love phase, you know? And and being semi-retired, I'm in, kind of between that and love without duty. In other words, I don't actually need to do stuff for money or anything. So why do anything, Well, do it for love, But this is because of the season of my life. If I somehow drop back to your age, I would, make as my wish to perform my duty, my to my family, to the world, with as much love as possible, which really means without attachment, for its own sake, with as much goodness as I could bring, rather than trying to perfect stuff. Your diet will never be perfect. Your parenthood will never be perfect. Your friendships will never. You're going to drop friendships that you don't want to drop because you forgot about them, and you won't be taking care of your body as well as you wished you could, or yeah. In other words, you'll always uh, fail to live up to your expectations in terms of uh, worldly achievement, but in terms of how you do things, everything that you do, imperfect though it may be, you can do it in a spirit that you will never regret. You can regret that you didn't like send your kid to the best prep school, but you'll never regret that you gave that conversation a lot of loving consideration. and then made a decision from the fullness of your heart what you were doing, you know? So so even in your season of life, it's ultimately not a problem, we just need to know why we're doing things, yeah,
Right. Well,
yeah.
the first thing when you were talking about the three duty and love relationships there, when you said duty without love, I assume that when you first said that, what I thought of was the time before my self-compassion practice, where I was being the best dad, being the best husband, being the doing all the stuff, and it felt I wouldn't have known it at the time. I wouldn't have had the vocabulary for it, but it felt empty compared to what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
In that, because I was so worried about protecting us from all of the bad things that could possibly happen, which is an infinite list. So
it is infinite.
it was like there was just so much. Like I need tomorrow to go well in order for today to be a good day. And there's just that never actually happens. You never achieve that. But then, as you were talking more, it occurred to me, maybe for duty without love would be, a military service or a job or something that you have to do. But that
Or
was
taxes, you know, you gotta
there
do
we
your
go.
taxes.
Perfect.
It's hard to find the love when we do our taxes, you know?
Indeed. Yes.
And
Yes.
if your daughter or son has poopy diapers, you know, you may not be feeling the love, you're just trying to execute the job, you know?
Right.
So that's all, you know, understandable, that's human, but when we have a choice, it's good to be clear why we're doing things,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's why my own self-compassion practice turned into a gratitude practice. Just naturally morphed that way, because the poopy diapers, the truth is, if I was in a different scenario, I would give anything to be with a child that was capable of making a poopy diaper. This is
Making a proper poop, yeah, you're
yes,
grateful for it.
exactly. Yes, if I was with my kid in the hospital or any number of scenarios, this would be
Yeah,
heaven.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so
for
j-
sure, yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really deep, gratitude practice you have there, Jamin.
it's
That's really deep.
okay.
That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. I
Yeah.
will accept that.
Yeah, but also, you know, I appreciate the whole premise of these interviews. You know, I was reading some of your, like, philosophy of podcasts,
Okay.
and, in particular, to keep it real, to keep it honest, to, you know, shed one's, you know, ideas about who we're supposed to be or who we are, and to really ask oneself, you know, "Who am I? What is real for me?" You know? You know, I remember when I mean, I don't remember, my father used to give the example of Martin Luther when he was asked on pain of death, "Do you actually believe all these things that you're proposing and saying?" And his response was, "I know no other. I know no other." So on pain of death, he told what he believed to be the truth. So anyhow, that, is also part of how we do things, you know? In other words, truthfully. We can do things truthfully, we can do things lovingly, and that's ultimately what elevates it, and also spares us from regret, because, you know, as Maya Angelou said, you know, "Forgive me for what I, uh, didn't know until I learned what I now know," you know? Uh, when we're truthful, we automatically forgive ourselves. We are okay because we knew no other, you know? So I think to live life like that, I think you're, you know, the kind of you might say, the approach which undergirds your podcasting is beautiful, and it also, you know, requires no apology
Hmm.
ever.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
best I can do, it's just what I know.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I feel like it makes apology so much more fluid, because I'm allowed to change my mind,
Yeah,
because
thank you.
I'm currently just doing my best. So if I harmed you, I presented something that was wrong to you, I'm sorry. That was truly my best at the time. And
exactly. So you wanted to talk about self-compassion. We have been talking about self-compassion because when people think about self-compassion, they often think about practices. They think about definitions, like the definition, treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding as to treat a good friend and so forth. And this is all true. This is all kind of uh, definitional, and it's practical, and it's helpful. It's really helpful. But at the end of the day, self-compassion is about allowing ourselves to be in any given moment to moment, exactly as we are. It is not, tormenting ourselves or criticizing ourselves or blaming ourselves for who we are now. Definitely, we are imperfect. Can we hold that in a loving awareness? Definitely, all of us can stand some improvement. Can we sign on for that? Definitely. But in this moment, what self-compassion means, in this moment, I can love this one too. I can be compassionate with this one too when they're suffering. That I will not, that I don't start with the "you are wrong, you are imperfect, you are not enough, you are inadequate, you are unlovable," any of those uh, um, rejections,
yeah,
So what is self-compassion? Self-compassion is allowing ourselves to be in this moment, just as we are, fully human. And so if do your podcasts with the effort to be helpful, with the effort to be truthful, and you embody that, this is self-compassion practice.
yeah, yeah. What do you said that a life-giving thing for you is teaching teachers. Um, what do you particularly enjoy about that as opposed to teaching students or conducting groups yourself?
I like all of it. But I love teaching, for example, the Mindful Self-Compassion program to people who have never had it. Because
Yeah.
it's so uplifting to watch that transformation, that learning process. But what I appreciate, well, first of all, my stage in life, teaching teachers is, cost effective for the limited time I have left on this planet. So,
Okay.
and also the teachers really wish to um, learn from me because I'm a founder, that's
Right.
somehow important to them. It gives them a sense of empowerment or entitlement. But the thing I also like about teachers is they're committed. In other words, if somebody is like gonna learn mindful self-compassion, and it's a 1 to 2 year pathway. It's like going to the university or something. It's a commitment. You got to pack up your trunk and, get your fan and get everything together. You got to do it. So it means that these folks are interested in going deeper and actually to kind of really, you might say, squeeze the juice out of this fruit. And so that's really wonderful to me um, because it's close to my own values and wishes, ways of living. So to spend some time interacting with people who are as committed, frankly, to bringing compassion into the world through self-compassion is a joy. Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my own personality, so I'm a school teacher, have been for a while. My own personality is very, I guess they would call it A-type. I'm like very aggressive and like care very much about my students and want to help solve their ignorances. And in the case of taking tests or math or whatever, that it's very if I interject myself, that's helpful. One thing that I was constantly caught off guard by in my CCT class was the degree to which the teacher allowed the students to be whatever they were, and were did not get involved to fix their problems, and like even problems that I felt like I could see, like, well, I know what the teacher's going to say now, and then he wouldn't. That sounds hard. Like, wait, we're not going to fix that. It's very, very fixable. What are the things that, when you're teaching teachers, you tell them to watch out for, or you would hope that they would include?
Well, I think that's a key one, non-fixing. But non-fixing doesn't actually mean that you don't ever make a suggestion. What it means is the foundation of the change agenda is radical acceptance. That's really key because when somebody, threatens us or is suffering a great deal, or, any number of reasons, we really want to make it like different. And so to start with the assumption of radical acceptance is really important for teachers when they're interacting with their students, and it's also the foundation, as I was just describing, of self-compassion, a radical acceptance of oneself. So in interacting with students, you're really modeling what it is that you wish for students to do. We're modeling interpersonally what we want students to cultivate interpersonally, intrapersonally. So that's, I think, a key one. The key one is starting the improvement, self-improvement with radical acceptance. And once that happens, then changes occur really quite naturally and easily, but that's not instinctive for human beings. That's a key notion. Um, uh, Another is what I'm talking about is some of the interpersonal skills. There are a lot of, you know, uh, curriculum and content things, like, yeah. But another is empathy and resonance. In other words, you're actually quite good at that, Jamin. You're very resonant, and the questions that you say kind of emerge from the resonance, and so that skill, some people are better at than others.
Can you put a
And
little more definition to that for me?
empathy refers to experiencing another person's world uh, as your own. In other words, just to put yourself in the other person's shoes, to actually look at the world through somebody else's eyes, and it's not mystical because uh, a lot of the real estate in the brain is finally evolved for resonance, for empathy, for understanding what other people are feeling even if they don't say a word. We can, like, feel others. We can know what others are feeling. So that's empathy. Some people have more than others. It's definitely important in the world, for compassion to emerge. Like empathy plus love equals compassion. We can
Empathy plus love equals compassion. Sorry, I just
Yeah,
needed a second with that one.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So for teachers, I like teachers to start to trust, to listen to and to trust their empathic resonance, and then also to speak from the resonance. So often we feel what somebody's feeling, and if it's painful, then we go into our heads to try to figure out, how am I going to help this person, or how are we going to fix that? And then when it's time for me to speak, out of my mouth comes a suggestion. That's a waste of time. What we like to do is to listen with the heart, feel in the body what a person is feeling, give ourselves permission to know what really stands out in our felt experience while somebody is speaking, and then directly speak from that place. That's profoundly helpful for others. It's healing, it's touching, it's connecting. So this is resonance. So one thing is radical acceptance. One is resonance. And then the last thing is what we would call resource building, for teachers. How to help people to find for themselves what it takes to cultivate self-compassion. In other words, not say, here are 20 exercises you should do, 3 of them every morning. That's a waste of time, because then self-compassion becomes like work and everybody has enough work. It's a bad idea. Self-compassion should always be a relief and not work. It should be easy, it should be pleasant, or it should be meaningful. And in order for somebody to continue to practice, they have to enjoy it. It has to feel good. Nobody can tell anybody else how to do that. People need to figure that out for themselves. This is unfortunately the case. But it's good for teachers to know they can't figure it out for somebody else. They need to help others figure out how to make self-compassion easy, pleasant, and or meaningful. These are, I'd say, 3 main things I like teachers to learn, besides the curriculum.
That's there's some hard stuff in there. Because when I would be in my meetings and other people would be sharing what's working for them with my personality type, I'd want to take notes and, okay, well, I'll include that, and okay, I'll include that. I want to do all the right stuff, all the right ways, all the right amount of time, and win the game. And fortunately, I was self-aware enough and had some good feedback to know that that wasn't the right thing. But then well, then how do I win? What do I do if trying to win isn't going to get me to win? How do I win? It was that constant. So
what did you learn? How do you win? What did you learn?
That winning doesn't actually get me the things that I want. What I want is to be here, and that winning happens tomorrow, and that there's something better today than winning tomorrow.
Fabulous.
So,
what a good teacher you must be. What a good leader you must be. What an excellent podcaster you are. And this is the frame of mind that we need in this world, this with so much divisiveness, is exactly this awareness and consciousness. It heals, and it brings people together, not apart.
And it seems like for me, in communicating these ideas of compassion and self-compassion, empathy, I feel like a lot of people feel like they have empathy because they assume they know what the other person is thinking. And so while I am in their head, the reason they would do that is because they're either stupid or evil. And so they need to stop being stupid or evil. And it's like, it feels, you can think that you are in someone else's head, but it feels like curiosity. When I'm trying to empathize with someone, it helps me to assume that my empathy is at least in some percentage a projection. This is not what they actually think. This is what I think they think, and check in with them.
Yes. Perfect. So, empathy is not enough. We also need curiosity. Especially in this multicultural world we live in. Yeah. But can you imagine if people were actually asking more questions than, declaring whatever our imaginations are to be the truth? And that, imagine everybody was asking questions, not snide questions, but genuinely curious questions. This would be a better world, Empathy and curiosity, I think, is a really powerful formula for healing and cultural health. And that's what you do in your podcast, Jamin.
Hopefully, that's the goal. I'm learning.
You're curious. You're empathic.
Yes.
You're doing it, man. You're doing it.
I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate you carving out this space for me. And I know this will be inspirational for a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jamin. It was a delight.
Thank you all for joining me. Just for this episode, I put together a daily practices for radical acceptance and self-compassion that's available in the blog post linked in the description. This all actually connects to my upcoming episode on the power of prayer, so make sure you're subscribed so you get notified when that's released. Hopefully it's obvious that I spend considerable effort putting these things together so you can have them for free. So now it's your turn. Click a couple buttons and give me something for free, and we can keep this good thing going between us. And for you like-minded super fans of Team Possibly Wrong, follow the link in the description for more free ways where you can show your support and keep this love train rolling. Be well, my distant cousins. I'm rooting for you, and you should too.